On this episode of My Own Garage, we bring this 2004 Honda CRV Maintenace all the way back up, and maybe a lift kit. We'll see. Let's get at it. We're going to start off with all the fluids while they're hot so they flow better. Do oil. Transmission fluid. We're replacing the driver's side engine mount, which is collapsed. Rear differential, coolant flush. So while we're here, we're actually going to loosen the coolant. So I just drove the vehicle, so it is going to be a little hot. So make sure you protect yourself. There it is. Make sure we keep our cap. Alright, so now we're going to get the vehicle up in the air. We're also going to do a brake fluid flush, but not at this moment right now. We'll do it after we're done this. Let's get this down. Okay, just like so. Now we're going to get the vehicle up in the air. Get yourself a 17mm wrench. Loosen up the drain plug. While the oil is draining, we can get our oil filter out, which is located just above the oil pan. Give you a good view of that. It's just right there. Get your arm up in here. And the best way is actually to bring your tool through here. Okay. Filter's loose. Now we adjust our oil pan. When we loosen our filter, it will always make sure that your gasket isn't still stuck up there, like so, because you could potentially double gasket your filter and cause yourself a big mess, possibly blow up the motor. So we're just going to let this drain all the way out, and you can put our new filter on. And what I like to do is clean the mating surface of the filter. Okay. Grab yourself some new oil. Dip your finger in. You want to lubricate the gasket. And pre-fill the filter just a bit. Not too much because it does go in on an angle. So you'll get a lot of spillage. Brand new gasket. I recommend always Honda gaskets. I always say hand tight for the filter. Don't over tighten it. We're just going to let the oil drain out as much as possible. And then we're going to loosen off the transmission fluid, which is right there. Okay. So while your engine oil is still draining, we can actually start that. So for that, we want a different funnel altogether. So we're actually trying to establish how much oil is going to come out of here, so we can put in the same amount. So a good way to do that, we get ourselves a second drain pan. Get yourself a 3/8 ratchet to drain the the oil, and you see that there's a clip here. Well, this clip is designed to, you know, it's gonna make a mess. So what we could do is definitely remove this here. All I want to do is just, there we are. Okay, and we just put this up here or down here. One or the other. I think we're gonna put it there. You get your reeds ratchet on. You can see it doesn't want to go on. Rubber mallet. You want it to be all the way in. It doesn't go in. Get yourself a screwdriver and clean out the hole, because what happens is rust gets inside and prevents this wrench from coming all the way in, like so. See? And the reason that's that tight is because no one has ever changed the gasket on it. So now we're going to remove the transmission fluid. While that's draining, we turn our attention back to our drain plug. Okay, let's torque the drain plug on the oil pan, 33 foot-pounds. That's it. Drain plug on our differential is 36. What I recommend doing is, see all the metal filings? Clean that up. Replace this gasket. As you can see, it's probably never going to replace in its life, and that's why this was tightened down so tight to get a seal. So now it's going to get a brand new washer. Don't play around. Just go to Honda and get the right size washer. Okay, once this is done, it's just dripping now. We're going to put our plug back in. Now, you know, normally you don't torque this, like no one really does, but for the purpose of this video, 36 foot-pounds. And now we got to crush. It will not leak. All right. Now we can clean this up. And we just dry this off. Put our hands up in here, because when the oil comes down from the oil filter, it makes a little bit of a mess. So we just want to dry it off. We don't want anyone to think there's an oil leak when there isn't. All right, so now we have our transmission fluid here. So what we're going to do is we're going to measure it and see what we got. Also checking the color. It's pretty black. So we have approximately I would call it 3.5 liters of fluid. So if you see that, there's 1, 2, 3, and if you measure that, it's 3.5. So we're just going to put the same amount of fluid that came out right back in. Because we can begin draining the radiator fluid. So there's a drain right here. So you just want to loosen it off. While your bucket's here, you want to just get it to drain. So this will drain the radiator fluid, and then we can refill the radiator fluid, run the vehicle. So while this is draining, we can go ahead and drain our rear differential fluid. Here's our rear differential. We can tackle this while the front diff drains. So all we do is we crack the fill plug. There, always crack the fill, because if it doesn't come off, you don't want to drain it. So same thing. Bring this in as close as you can, crack it. So first thing we do is remove the fill plug. Now we're going to remove the drain. Here's our fluid. Now that it's done leaking, you're going to replace the gaskets on your drain and your fill plug, which you can get at the Honda dealer. I do not recommend any other gaskets besides those. So you're going to put the fill gasket back on. Just snug it up so it doesn't leak. We'll torque it after. Okay. Grab your fill pump, something like this, and you're just going to stick it up in the hole, like so, and just pump your fluid in. Unfortunately, this is taking too long to fill, so we're going to have to do it the way I used to do it. So, don't try this at home, unless you want to. This is a little tool we used to make at Honda, it's just an elbow. You fill air through the top. Done, filled. And then I go to the next one. There we go. Okay. Spin your wheels around. Once it stops dripping, grab your fill gasket, fill port, plug, and gasket. Put your gasket in, your plug in. Torque is the same here. 36 foot-pounds. Make sure you're on there nice. That's it. Top one. That's it. Clean it up. Clean up the area. And now your rear differential is finished. Now we'll get back to our radiator fluid. You see it's still draining. When it's dripping, it means you've drained all the radiator fluid out of the system that you can. So you gotta close this up again. Now we're going to remove all the wheels off the vehicle. So we're going to start filling your coolant. Okay. This is something that could happen while we're filling the rest of the fluid. It's all about being efficient. So, something I always used to do to keep the mess down is okay. For now, without us bleeding it, it's good. This vehicle takes approximately 4.5 liters. So. Four and a half liters. We'll recheck once we start the vehicle. Okay. Transmission fluid now. We removed 3.5 liters, so we are going to put 3.5 liters back in it and check our level after the vehicle is warm. There's our 3.5 liters. We'll obviously double check. There. What we want to do now is start the vehicle. Put the heat to max, fan speed to low, AC off. And just run it until the vehicle fans turn on and both rad hoses are the same temperature, the upper and lower, and that tells us that the thermostat has opened up. So let's get to that right now. As you can see, the air is already starting to rise. So we want to run the vehicle till the bubbles stop, until both radiator hoses, so upper, and then there's another one below it, which we can't access, but pretty much when the fans turn on the vehicle, both fans turn on, that means the radiator has kicked on, we've reached operating temperature, and it's gone through a heat cycle. So that's what we're going to do now. Once you hear your engine fan cycle like they just did, check your coolant level. Make sure it's good. Make sure your reservoir is topped up to the max mark. And now you are done bleeding your cooling system. Your radiator cap's ready. Some coolant will drain out. That's okay. Your cap on. Clean it up. We can now turn the vehicle off and we can check our fluids. So, our engine oil. Our engine oil is good. 2.4 to 2.5 liters. Transmission fluid is right on the line. That's perfect. Okay, so right now we're gonna deal with the brake fluid, cleaning everything up, replacing the brake fluid. First thing I want to do is we want to tidy up. As we can see, our brake fluid is in disgusting shape. It is almost like a green color. So we will remove our filter. So internal filter. So if it doesn't come out. Yeah. Here's our filter. So we want to wash this out. If you can tell, look at the color of it. The brake fluid is completely broken down. Okay, set this aside. Now we can suck out all the brake fluid that's inside of here to clean everything up. So our next step now is to start adding our brake fluid. Clean the inside out. Okay. Get our filter back in here. We get our .3, .4 brake fluid. Now we go to the furthest corner from the vehicle and we're going to drain that first. So what we want to do is we want to get a hose, drain bucket, and we want to make sure that our bleeders come loose. So I already checked them earlier. So what we want to do is we want to drain enough brake fluid out of here so that we can 100% know that all the brake fluid has cleared the lines. So when that brake fluid reaches about half an inch to an inch in height, we should have cleared the entire lines out. So back at the front, as you can see, we had the brake fluid topped up all the way to the top. It's down about half an inch. So what I like to do is when that brake fluid reaches, let's say there, I know that that whole line back there is clear. Or if you want to be even better, is when it gets about there, when it gets about here, that line there, we can safely say that the rear right brakes are completely bled properly. We tighten the rear bleeder, and then we refill the fluid to the top. We go to the left rear, the left rear of the vehicle, open that bleeder, let it drain down to here, close the bleeder, fill the fluid up. Then we do the passenger side front, then the driver side. You always start from the furthest to the closest to the ABS and master cylinder. So this is just a waiting game now. Okay, so once we've reached pretty much our line, we top this up. Okay, we are now at the back, so we can safely close our bleeder. That's our bleeder closed off. We'll clean it up after. And then we can see in here, we're gonna dump that. And now at our next location, this bleeder is actually very tight, so we won't be opening it very much because I believe that if we open it too much, it may break. So we're just gonna open it up just slightly. We have to let it run. This one will take a little longer, but that's okay. Same thing, we're gonna wait till our brake fluid hits that line down there, refill it, close our left rear bleeder, and then move on. Okay, our brake fluid has now drained down pretty far. So we will, once again, top it up. So now that our brake fluid is pretty much drained out, we can close the bleeder. Okay, so now we will be bleeding the brakes on the front right caliper, so we just want to crack the bleeder open. And we'll repeat the same process. As we can see, the brake fluid is already almost down to our line, and we got to remember that this line is much shorter than the rest of them because it's just the passenger side front. So we're just going to top it up. Now we can close the bleeder. Okay, now we can close the bleeder off. Just want to tighten up the bleeder, not too tight. Now we're going to clean it off, put our nipple back on, and also put all those back on, the other ones you already bled. And now we're going to do our final caliper. So now we're doing the front left caliper, which is the closest caliper to the ABS and to the master cylinder. So now we're just going to drain this one, and then we'll be done. Open up our bleeder, and now let's go watch up. Same idea. We're going to let the brake fluid get down to here. Then we're going to top it up. I'm going to close all the bleeders. And I'm going to pump the pedal, and we want our brake fluid to be roughly just below the max mark, which is that mark right there, because we have some brake wear, but mostly the pads are brand new. Okay, as we can see, our brake fluid level is all the way down. So now we want to bring it up to our max mark. Okay, we can now close off our bleeder. So we'll do that now. So just closing off the bleeder. Cap on. Our next step is we want to apply the brake pedal until it's firm. Don't pump it all the way down, just until you get a nice firm pedal. Make sure it doesn't go to the floor. Okay. Okay, so now we just want to confirm our brake fluid level. So it is just slightly below max, which is good because our brake pads are not new. And now we can put our cap back on. And our brake fluid flush is complete. Okay, we also need to replace the engine mount. So to do that, we need to get our power steering out of the way as best as we can, so we can have full view and access of everything we need here. So we're replacing the mount down here. It's collapsed. The actual bracket is sitting on the mount. So what we need to do first is loosen up these bolts and relieve the pressure from the engine. So let's take a look underneath. So what I'm going to do is lower the vehicle down on top of the actual oil pan. This works the same way if you use a jack. So just take a look at the transmission and watch the engine raise. There. So now the pressure is on the actual oil pan. So we can actually start accessing our bolts. So they are 17. Okay. One bolt. So we want to crack all the bolts loose. All right. Good. There's our nut. Now we're going to remove this one. Okay. Engine is lowering as I do that. There's a nut. So now our bracket should pretty much come out. There's our bracket. You can slide off to the side. Now you see our engine mount bolts, 3 14mm bolts. They we're going to be removing. So one's loose. Two. Once you remove all those bolts, all three, the engine mount should just come out. As we can see, this engine mount the bracket has been sitting on it, as you can see by the imprint, so it's completely collapsed. You can see it's torn right there. And if you look underneath, the bladder is gone. It's filled with fluid. It's completely gone. As you can see, the new mount, the bladder is intact. So we're going to install our new engine mount right now. Just going to line up all the bolts and we're going to torque them. Once all your bolts are in, get your torque wrench and you torque those to 43 foot-pounds. There's one. Two. Three. In a future episode, we're going to be installing a lift kit on this vehicle. So for now, we're just going to put these in. And that is a shim for the bracket. Anyone interested in that? We will be going over that in a future episode. So, okay, I'm gonna line up our bolt. Oh, actually comes with a new one. Okay, well, because there's a shim involved, we have to actually use a replacement bolt. So what we want to do is just want to make sure that the threads are lined up nice. And we want to get everything started lightly by hand. We don't want to have any difficulty tightening this. Especially this bolt here. You want to make sure you start it by hand and it goes in all the way without any pressure, because those threads are known to strip. So you want to get everything snug. Once you have your 1, 2, 3 bolts on, you're going to torque these to those 3 bolts to 40 foot-pounds. So I took the weight off of the oil pan because now the bolts are snug. So we're just going to torque these up. $40 foot-pounds. There's one. Two. Okay, so all those bolts are tightened. So what we're going to do is we're going to mark them. Okay, so now all this side of the engine is torqued. Our shims are in for our lift kit. So everything's good. So now we can move on. We can now put the power steering pump back. Alright. Alright, so everything here is done. So that concludes all the maintenance up to date on this 2004 Honda CRV. we did the engine oil, transmission fluid, coolant, rear differential, brake fluid, and we replaced the saggy engine mount. And on the next episode of this vehicle, we're going to be installing a lift kit from hrgoffroad.com. It's a 2.5 inch lift kit for this vehicle. We're going to be replacing camber arms, pretty much an overhaul of the entire suspension to get all the geometry correct. All right, guys, have a nice one.